Good morning. Welcome to another Read Aloud of Hero. We were joined by our couch dog, Diego. Yeah, you gonna stay for the whole thing? We'll see. He's a busybody. All right, we read a few chapters yesterday, and we found out that maybe Zach has some magic. But let's read on and see. Much better. Chapter 16. What did his mom know about all of this? Mr. Herbert had said he was a friend of the family. If that was the truth, and who knew what the truth was with this guy, did that just mean Zach's dad? Or did it mean his mom was in on the secret too? But if he asked her about Mr. Herbert, he'd have to explain how he'd met the old man. Every time Zach played it out in his head, no matter how many different ways he tried to start the conversation, it didn't end well for him. Forget about superpowers. Zach didn't think he had the brain power to carry it off. He still had to find a way, not just to ask his mom about the old man, but about what the old man had said. Had his dad really had powers? And if so, why hadn't they saved his life? You want to back up? No? Can lay next to the couch? Apparently the floor is much more comfortable than the couch. Zach waited until the next morning. He and his mom were having their Sunday morning breakfast at their favorite coffee shop. They had been coming here every Sunday for years, always taking the same back booth. Zach always ordered what his dad used to call his truck stop breakfast: scrambled eggs and ham with a small stack of pancakes on the side with some home fries. He was even allowed to have a black and white milkshake. Today he was polishing off the last of his home fries when he said, "Mom, is there anything about Dad I don't know about? Maybe that I should know?" As casual as if he'd asked her to pass the salt. She was wearing a Harvard sweatshirt that had belonged to his dad. It looked huge on her, yet she never seemed to care. She wore it every Sunday like it was her coffee cup uniform. She smiled at Zach over her cup of coffee. "There's a question out of left field." Zach wanted to keep it light. "You ever wonder why it's not right field or center field?" "No," she said, "I never did, but this isn't a baseball conversation, is it?" He shook his head. "Dad," he said. She put her cup down and leaned forward. "Well," she said, "I don't think there was a lot I don't know about your dad's work." "Oh, I think there was a lot I don't know about your dad's work." "I'm not asking about his work," Zach said. "I know a lot of that was classified and top secret and all that, and that he was never really telling us everything, even when his mission was over. That's not what I'm talking about. I was wondering, is there stuff I ought to know about, like his life?" It wasn't the first time Zach had wondered about this. Even when his dad was alive, Zach had never learned as much about Tom Harriman's early life as he wanted to. He knew that his dad had been an orphan, raised in group homes until he finally got foster parents, Richard and Carol Harriman, about the time he was Zach's age. Richard and Carol had been in their 50s at the time and living in Greenwich, Connecticut. They paid for Tom to go to Brunswick Academy, a fancy private school, and saw him become a 3-sport star there and president of the student body before he went off to Harvard. The Harrimans died at freshman year at Harvard in a car accident. "They gave me a life," he said to Zach once. "I just wish they could have seen how it turned out." Zach had heard plenty about his dad's high school years and his college years, but very little about being an orphan. The group homes, about growing up without parents. Tom Harriman had never said anything about trying to find out who his birth parents were. Zach had asked his dad once what he'd been like as a kid. Tom Harriman just smiled and said, "Exactly like I am now, just younger." Zach had always wanted more. Now he needed more. He asked his mom, "Did he ever tell you about when he was young?" "No," she said. "Usually he'd just make a joke out of it. If I tried to press him, and I did try to press him occasionally, he'd just say, 'Oh, sure, beat up the orphan boy.' But then he always used humor when he wanted to keep me at arm's length. If we'd have one of our rare arguments and he knew he was in trouble, he'd say, 'You can't make me go live on the street. Been there, done that.' I know there had to have been some terrible times for him, but I could never press him enough to get him to talk about them. Now I wish I had." "Me too." The coffee shop was emptier than usual today, quieter, so Zach tried to keep his voice low. "Did he have any talents he never talked about. You mean like sports talents? Come on, you know what he was like. As far as I could tell, he could do anything he wanted to. And well, from rock climbing to high diving, running marathons, he was almost like a freak when it came to all that. A freak? Zach thought. With a freak boy. Who knew Spence's nickname for him would be so dead on? And in addition to everything else, Elizabeth Harriman said, he thought he was just the greatest pilot on the planet. She put sad eyes on Zach and said, sorry, kiddo. No need to apologize. If she was holding back, keeping something from him, she was doing a world-class job of it. But he stayed with it. Nothing out of the ordinary, though. Where are we going with this, pal? I'm just curious, he said. I don't know. Didn't you always tell me curious was a good thing? You know what they used to say about Dad. There had to be 3 Tom Harrimans to accomplish everything he accomplished in his life. I'm just curious about where the curiosity is coming from today, his mom said. I'm just like you, Mom. I never pressed him enough when I had the chance, so now I'm pressing you. I'll answer you this way, she said. I guess I never thought he was doing anything out of the ordinary because he was so extraordinary at everything. One last shot, like he was heaving a half-court shot before the horn sounded. No magic, he said. It made his mom laugh. Magic? Your dad couldn't even do a decent card trick. Over the next few days, he was barely able to focus on school or basketball or anything. All he could think about was what had happened in that field. The field where his dad's plane had crashed had changed everything for him, twice. Zach went through the motions in his classes and with his homework, and he and Kate even pulled off an A on the Addison FDR project. He managed not to suck in basketball, shooting the ball a little better and playing some decent defense this time. Maybe because he wasn't trying so hard, or maybe because it didn't matter as much as it had when he practiced the last time. He was even managing to stay off Spence Warren's smack list, both physically and mentally. His father had told him once that bullies, the world over, had one thing in common. They hated people standing up to them. Maybe that's what finally got Spence off his back. The fight in the park, even though Zach hadn't given him much of a fight. At least he'd felt like fighting, finally fighting back. No matter where he was or what he was doing, though he kept waiting for that feeling to come over him again, the crazy one that had him thinking he was about to turn into a werewolf, waiting and wondering what would happen to him the next time. Could he fly? Make himself invisible again? Could he take Spence Warren in a fair fight? Could he turn these powers, whatever they were, on and off, as easily as if he were putting his laptop to sleep? Yet nothing new happened, just the regulation Zach Harriman. No old wizards jumping out of the weeds like grasshoppers, no weird trips in the park at night, no urge to pick a fight with a wall or with Spence or scare off a mugger hiding in the bushes. I feel like I'm an elevator, he said to Kate. A full week had passed between meeting Mr. Herbert and today. They were walking home from a movie, struck between floors, not even knowing if I'm going up or down. She giggled. Sounds like your normal state, if you ask me. That's supposed to be helpful. Not to you, maybe, but it makes me happy. Seriously, he said, does this make any sense to you? Seriously? Yeah, I get it. You feel like your life went to a commercial break and you were waiting for the show to come back on, only it won't. The whole week. You haven't been able to do anything like you did getting home from Montauk. Anything out of, like, Smallville, Superboy. Zach shook his head. The only thing out of the ordinary was staying awake for a whole science class. My goodness, you are superhuman if you can stay awake for science class. Do you think I should head out to the field again? Not really. I mean, if this is really your life now, then it's going to happen wherever you are, right? Zach nodded. They had entered Central Park by now and were walking around the reservoir. It was starting to get dark, and the temperature had dropped about 10 degrees since they left the movie theater. Sometimes I think I imagine the whole thing, but that would mean I imagined it too, Kate said. That would be some hallucination, Harriman, for 2, the price of 1. Zach casually reached into his pocket and felt for Dad's Morgan. He kept it with him all the time, except when he was at basketball practice. It felt warm, the way it had at Montauk. Not good, Zach thought. Not good at all. So he's walking through the park with Kate, and he's got his silver dollar, and it's starting to feel warm. Let's see what happens. Chapter 17. Zach had swear there had been plenty of joggers in the park only a moment before. Some of them had even passed him and Kate. Yet now he couldn't see any of them as they came around to the west side of the reservoir. It was as if somebody had waved them off the running track all at once. Now it was just Zach and Kate, and the three guys blocking their way. Uh-oh. Zach and Kate stopped instinctively. Kate reached for his hand, and there was no mistaking what was about to happen with the three guys. Trouble. Two of them casually moved behind Zach and Kate. The one in front said to Zach, "Empty your pockets." Zach said, "I know you." And he was sure he did. Sure that face underneath the black knit cap was the same one he'd seen the other night in the park. Staring at him now, Zach said, "You were going to jump that woman that night, weren't you?" Kate said, "What night?" Zach ignored her. "I'm right, aren't I?" he said to knit cap. "Shut up, kid," the guy said. "All I've got in my pocket is about $4 in change," Zach said. "I don't want the $4, and I don't want the chump change," he said. "I want the coin." "Morgan, how do you know?" The guy looked at his two buddies and said, "I told you, kid's clueless." "Well, I know I am," Kate said, trying to sound normal, Zach knowing better, hearing the change in her voice, hearing how scared she was. "I know this," Zach said. "My dad gave me this coin, and there's no way I'm handing it over to some scrub like you." And just like that, he started to feel it. Not the fear he knew Kate was feeling. The other feeling. A roar inside his head, inside of him. "Zach," Kate said. "It's okay, Kate." "Don't," she said in a small voice. "Just give them what they want and let's get out of here." He turned to her, smiling now, actually enjoying himself. See, their problem is they don't know how badly I've gotten them outnumbered. A lot happened then, seemingly all at once. Someone reached for Kate's arm, but she wheeled and dove away from him, off the track and onto the grass, rolling as she landed, leaving Zach and the three men. Not really knowing how to do what he wanted to do, Zach wheeled and hit the guy who had reached for Kate with an elbow and caught him cleanly on the jaw. Direct hit. Zach heard a sound that reminded him of the crack a bat in baseball. The guy staggered back but didn't go down. He gave his head a quick shake and started to raise his fists. Too late. Without even feeling himself make the move, Zach was behind him, reaching up and putting his hand on the guy's neck, knowing exactly what to do, finding the pressure point like it had an X drawn on it. He squeezed hard and knocked him out. 1 against 2 now. The odds getting worse for them by the minute. He was about to go for Nitcap when he heard Kate yell, "Watch out!" Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the other guy, the widest of the three, circling to the right, holding a metal pipe in his hand. Zach covered the distance between them with the kind of blinding first step he wished he had in hoops. He took the pipe out of the guy's hand like he was taking a pacifier away from a baby. Then Zach drop-stepped away, giving himself just enough room to jump and spin and take him down with the kind of move that would make Jackie Chan proud. Now it was just him and Nitcap. Zach was anxious to finish this, knowing it had started that night when Nitcap was in the bushes, waiting for the woman jogger. Zach dropped the metal pipe at his feet. He didn't need it. "How did you know about the coin?" Zach said, taking a step forward. Nitcap shook his head. "Not today, kid. Maybe another time, but not today." Then instead of moving on Zach, he turned and ran in the other direction, went up over the tall iron fence in one move, like someone in a highlight reel slam dunk. And dove into the water of the reservoir. Zach ran to the fence, waiting to see the guy come up, only he didn't. The water was completely still, without even the kind of ripple you get when you throw a stone into it. He waited for what felt like a long time and then walked back to the track, confused. Kate was on her knees in the grass, staring at him. "Zach?" she said in a quiet voice, his name like a question to her. Zach said, "The other two. They ran off?" Kate shook her head. Somehow Zach had known she would. "No," she said. Her voice was much more than a whisper. "Where are they then?" They disappeared," she said. Her eyes were wide and frightened. "Like they were deleted," she said. Wow. Okay. So it sounds like the mugger, the same person that he confronted here, has some abilities like Zach. In fact, all three of the guys, it seems like, were able to disappear like Zach did from Montauk. And he's got these fighting powers now that he didn't know he had. He just knew instinctively what to do. Interesting. So the story's definitely picking up again, and I'm curious to see what happens next time. I hope you're enjoying it. I'll see you next time.